No, sir. So far we
It's
have, I'll
already,
tell you.
ma'am, please check the drive. It is already there.
Ma'am, please check that. I think she has already put it in the drive. All of you, please check.
Sir, I've done a reco of the drive last night and we have received for session 1, session 2. So that's it. But there are subjects for which we don't have. So that.
No, you just mentioned about DCM right now.
Ma'am, just give me a minute. I'm just checking and I'm telling you. Just give me. If it is there, then we are grateful. But if it is not there, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Whatever has been covered so far, everything has been shared with you. And whatever we are doing today, I will share it with you by tomorrow or maximum day after.
Yeah, so we have session 1, session 2 PPTs.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But we only have video for one session. We don't have the video for the next.
No, but that should be there, no? Everything is recorded. So I'm sure you will get that video also.
So yesterday some links were shared, but I think it was not there.
Excuse me, ma'am, that is not sir's responsibility. You can do a WhatsApp to me. Here, just make sure about the class that sir is teaching. If there is any concern in the links, just, send a WhatsApp to me.
Yeah. I think our head office will make sure that all the resources are available to you. Don't worry about it. All right, I think it's 8:34 plus begin the session. Others can. Join as we move along.
Where is the drive? Which drive is it available? The presentation?
So Tia, I will share the drive link.
Okay.
In fact, a week back, I had shared it in your WhatsApp group. Kindly refer to the WhatsApp group because there are important notifications that I'm sending. Again, I am getting the same queries. So if there is anything different, you can. It was shared, I think, 10 days back with you all.
Yes, ma'am, we have got it. I will share with her separately if she doesn't have.
It's not personal responsibility of an individual. See, there is a group means there has to be onus for everyone to check themselves. She can go check there and make sure that she receives the link and place it somewhere. Individually, then, you'll have to start doing her assignment also. Let's not get into this habit. We are all matured individuals. We need to make sure that we check everything that is mentioned in the group. It's for your betterment. I hope, you all understand that as matured individual, it's important.
Right. I think we'll start the session for the day. So welcome you all for the third session. Yes. Now, as I mentioned to you, we will be dealing with the case study. Did you have a chance to read the case study given the study material? How many of you are able to do that? Yes? I think let's get started. Did you have a chance to read the case study given the study material? Any one of you?
No, sir.
No. Okay. But it's not a very long one. What stopped you from just browsing through that? I mean, just curious. It's your personal matter, but just want to understand what made you not to browse through that, because in a case study cannot be discussed by the facilitator alone. Then it will be monologue. If it is a discussion, that will be much better, much more effective.
I think there were some instructions that were going to be given. I think I must have missed that if that came in.
Sorry, come again.
I think you had mentioned that some instructions you were going to have it sent about where the case studies, and I think I must have missed that instruction whenever you sent.
And sent yesterday morning. Actually, this week I just wanted to see. I didn't send the PPTs also on Monday or Tuesday. I wanted to see whether somebody will ping me and say, okay, it has not come. or call the head office and say, okay, it has not been shared. I think there was no such, follow-up. Then finally I said, okay, I think this
Sir,
is how
your voice is little low. Can you please speak louder or raise the voice? Thank you.
okay, my voice is not audible.
It is audible, but
They are audible, but volume is less.
Okay, is it better now? Is it better?
Somewhat,
no,
yes.
little louder. Okay, fair enough.
We have kept our volume in full, but still your voice is very faint.
Uh-huh. Okay, just give me a minute. I will set the audio proper then. Just give me 1 minute. I will come back.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Now can hear.
So we
Okay.
can hear you well now, yes.
Okay. Okay. No, I made the changes in the audio. All right. Okay. Now coming back. Now let's. I understand that you did not have the chance to go through the case, so I will go according to that. Now let me first understand from you. What do you understand by competency? We have already completed 2 sessions, and this is a very important definition, and the whole subject revolves around that. What do you understand by competence? Can any one of you articulate that?
Sir, like as we have already discussed, competence is what the role requires, any job requires, any position requires, any
No, no,
designation requires.
they are required, but what I want is, what do you mean by competency? How do you define them?
That is what we can say. It is the basic thing, basic criteria, basic characteristic, basic requirement for anything. If the person is expected to perform, expected to deliver, then what is the basic requirement of it? Say, for example, I want to hire someone for, say, typing job as a typist. Then what is the competence? Is the typewriting is the competence. It's a very naive example, I know, but we can say that. Suppose I want to hire a programmer, coder, then he should have the, no, sir. Okay.
No. I think you are giving a very uh, uh, you know, not a textbook kind of. It is what's generally people colloquially use. But when you are an expert in this subject and we are expected to answer this question, this answer will not get you the desired, scoring. So you need to be more careful about it. I think I think just hold on, we will see. Yeah, Rasia Modak, madam.
Sir, competencies, those are the behavior-based attributes of a person, and it's basically whether they're able to behave in a result-centric manner. I think those are some notes that I'd made in your last session, and
Yeah.
how.
Behavior is definitely one, but apart from that, you also need to have the basic knowledge, right?
That would be the competence, no, the skill. You have
Yeah.
given a differentiation between competence and competency.
Competencies are the knowledge, skills, and
Skills and attitude.
Attitude.
other
Behavior, yeah.
attributes
Yes,
which are
yes.
required to be successful in a job.
Correct.
Now, not do the job, they are required to be successful on a job, right? Or in a role, actually, to be more precise, you are defining a role, and in that role, you want to succeed. These are the requirements for the job. So, I think just now, Mr. Kulkarni said, if for a typist, typing is the competence required. Is it right? How far is that answer correct? What are the competencies required for a typist, let us say? I think since he has used the example there, can I answer in the question saying that typewriting is the competency for a typist? Is that right or wrong?
That's just one part.
Partially
That's
right,
the skill.
partially right. Yeah.
It's only 1/3 of it. It's only the skill.
What makes a typist successful in his role?
The
So,
knowledge, skills, and
having the
abilities.
knowledge of, having the knowledge of typing is the knowledge part. He should also have skills and
Typing,
abilities and also emotional intelligence to successfully, do well in his job.
No, typing is a skill. First of all, you should have the keyboard skills, right?
Yes, it's a mixture of knowledge plus skills, sir, I feel.
You are really not looking at a great knowledge, but you should have the basic communication skills. If it is a specific language related typing, I think in that language, you should have the proficiency in that particular language. You
Right,
should be
yes,
able to
sir.
Just
understand.
intervention.
Yeah.
Again, intervention.
Then
Today
what
I was.
he should be
Yeah.
meticulous. He should not make any mistakes in that, right? So that's a
Correct, exactly.
No, being meticulous is an important characteristic there. Then he should be effectively able to manage time. See, a typist, time management is not only for the manager. Even a typist has to manage his time because he has to deliver the tasks given by the manager on time. So I'm just giving you the example so that you are able to understand this. And when the question is asked in the examination, you are able to give the right kind of answer. For example, what are the competencies required for a driver? Now, you cannot simply say driving is the competency. What are the competencies required for a driver?
Yeah, he should be alert. He should have also knowledge of the traffic signals and the traffic rules. And he should also have time management. He should be very quick quick impulses.
So you
And he should know how to drive.
safety.
Yes,
He should be
safety. Yes,
he
yes,
should
sir.
be concerned and he should be ready to understand the importance of safety. So he should know what are the safety requirements. Then he should be emotionally very stable. A driver cannot be emotionally highly impulsive, right? He should not get lose his temper on the road while he's driving and ram his vehicle into somebody else's vehicle, right? And he should be punctual because the entire driving is required from moving from one place to the other place, which is the time dimension. He should be knowledgeable about the routes where he is expected to drive. So these are all the competencies. If a question is asked, what are the competencies of a driver, and he simply says driving is the competency, that is not a correct answer. Have I made the point clear? I'm not getting a response.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, what are the competencies for a trainer? Because all of you are in the training space. What are the competencies required for a trainer?
One
You
is
can
the
say
basic
communication skills,
skill
body
of
language, presentation skills. Those are all the competencies. Competence. Because basic, the trainer is train the people. Trainer is to engage the trainees or learners, whatever we can say. So that is the basic. Thank you.
So knowledge of the subject which is going to conduct the training.
Very good. See, basically, whenever you are talking about competencies, look at it from three different perspectives. First, define what is the knowledge requirement. Second, define what are the skills requirements. Third, talk about the process abilities. Now, in the case of a trainer, as Mr. Bobby Judge said, the first requirement is you should be a subject matter expert. If you are dealing with soft skills, you should be thorough with the soft skills related knowledge. If you are dealing with computer coding, you should be thorough with the computer coding, whatever the language you are using, whatever the platform is. So he should have the knowledge of the subject matter. Next, what are the skills required of a trainer? I think whatever you've said, good presentation skills, good grooming, then emotionally stable. You should be able to manage time effectively, resolve the conflicts if there are some conflicts during the session. So these are all the skills required for being a good trainer. And then he should be empathetic, of course. Then you come to the process requirements. Process requirements are how do you manage your entire training session. You should be able to manage the technology, you should be able to manage the board, you should be able to manage the floor. I mean, all those things, and including the communication related to pre-training communication, during the training communication, post-training communication, maybe to some extent, how do you administer the evaluation of a training? All those things are required as a process. So if you look at it from three different perspectives, and understand what is required under each subhead, then you will be very, very thorough and accurate in your answering. Have I made the point clear to you? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the question is, in a subject like this is a purely applied subject. There's nothing great in terms of a theory because it borrows theory from various other subjects, particularly, the entire AD model is from the instructional design background, and the frameworks are all basically from the OB related foundations. So it is an application of these two courses, these two subjects, and using it in the corporate performance related issues. When you're doing this, the questions that are asked are going to be primarily in the examination, they'll be all related to applied questions. In all application questions, the context is given generally, and then they ask you to develop the required frameworks of competences for the particular situation. Now, all that you're going to get is maybe about a paragraph or a description of a situation in maybe about 100 words, and then your answer probably will run into some 2-3 pages, right? Now, this case study, what we're going to discuss, is going to be a sort of example how a question can be given, and based on that, how you develop. Now, to develop the answers, obviously, you need to have the bandwidth, you need to have the imagination, you need to understand what kinds of job roles are there in different industries. The question can be related to manufacturing, the question can be related to services, the question can be related to some NGO function, whatever it is. So the context can be different. And to that extent, you need to have some imaginative answer. They will not give you the full details. Right? Any questions on that?
Clear, sir.
Yeah. So please understand that your participation in the discussion is important, because this is going to develop your thought process, and then we are going to prepare you for your ensuing examination so that you can score well. Now, we are going to discuss the case study that's mentioned in the study material. And in addition to that, I am also going to give you inputs on the IDP, that is Individual Development Plan. Although it is not there, I think you must understand in the whole purpose of competency mapping and competency frameworks is you know the job, you identify the competencies required for making an employee successful in the job. And obviously, an employee will not have all the competencies, and therefore you need to identify what are the gaps, what is expected in his job role to be successful, what does the employee have, what are the gaps, and then your job as a trainer is to help the employee overcome those gaps. And that basically means individual development plan has to be understood, and it has to be documented, and that forms the basis for any L&D activity. And therefore, I wanted to leave you with this concept of individual development plan. If some of you are already using it and you are aware of it, it is well and good. If you don't know about it, I think it's important that you also know that the competency frameworks also require, for effectiveness, the individual development plans. All right. Now we have already discussed basically here. It is the competence. You must understand competencies have to be seen from three different perspectives. One, what is the knowledge required, which is the expertise that you should have. Then the skills required, and then the other process related, other attributes, whatever are required. In the parlance of training, we talk about the processes that one should know, so that you are able to prepare the person or the employee to actually execute whatever the work that is to be done using the knowledge and the skills in his job. Now, we talked about the technical competency framework, which is basically at a lower end. It is not at a leadership level, and it has two different competencies in terms of division. One is the behavioral competencies. That is where whether you are a cook, we are looking at a cook or a driver or a security staff or a typist or a data operator, whoever it is, there are certain behavioral competencies required. Quite often in the organizational appraisal system, what I have noticed is we focus more on the technical competencies or the functional competencies, and we tend to overlook the behavioral competencies. And if you think of, if you look at the biggest fiascos in the business world, a lot of fiascos have happened because of the lack of behavioral competencies, not because of technical competencies. So too much of over-reliance on technical competencies is not desirable. You must have a fairly balanced approach. And as you move up the ladder, behavioral competencies are more important than the technical competencies, what we have already discussed in the previous session. And technical competencies will help you because you are subject matter expert. You got the expertise in that. You will be able to solve or create a solution for the existing problems, or troubleshoot a problem that is existing or that is faced, and then you have the ability to deal with that and come out successfully, so that your organization can perform better. Now, in this case, assume any enterprise, they have said XYZ enterprise. Now, this is supposed to be a financial services company. And obviously, every company wants to grow. Growth is considered to be a continuous requirement in any company. And we all believe without growth, if you don't grow, there is something wrong either with the CEO or with the company itself. So likewise, in this company, the company is having some challenges. They wanted to increase their market share, and therefore they've come up with new products and new services, and yet their market share is gradually dipping. Now that's a serious concern for any CEO of an organization. If you are able to maintain the status quo, you are okay. If you are able to grow, very good. If you are able to rapidly grow, excellent. And if you are not growing and if it is dipping, then you've got a serious concern. Then they've looked at why is it happening, and they wanted to take a dipstick study, and they found that the customer satisfaction is also good. Now, if your customers are not satisfied, it is all the more a reason for you to get worried. And then they wanted to also make a study about their brand recall, and the brand recall is also dipping. Now, in all the three fronts, the outcomes are not satisfactory. Obviously, the CEO will be seriously concerned. Now, given this description of the situation, what do you think are the major challenges for the company now? So even if you have not read the case, it's okay. I have given you the briefing. Now, you please tell me what are the major, if you are a CEO, what challenges are you foreseeing?
The competencies are not related to what is there, what is required in the market. Because they're
Okay.
trying to launch a new, I think, product and services, and maybe the people are not adapted to deal with that kind of newness they're trying to bring in.
Okay. Yeah, what else?
Also, the clients are not satisfied. Customer satisfaction is low, so that means that there'll be more detractor customers rather than promoter customers in the long run.
Okay.
Sir, it could be pricing and product quality as well, which is not in very much in competition with the other competitors in the market, so they're not growing.
Okay. Wonderful.
Company's R&D to be products.
Somebody?
R&D for the products, research and
Lack
development.
in R&D.
Okay. You are looking at the quality of the products and whether their fitment is right or wrong, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir. Proper training to be given to the employees for the customer satisfaction.
Okay. So you are in the training space. Always in every problem, you should look at how do you create your own business and your own survival. So look at how best you can rope in the training department to improve the concerned staff members who are all involved in improving the market share, brand recall, and customer satisfaction.
Yes.
So in this case, I mean, obviously, there are different dimensions. There can be R&D dimension. Yes. Yeah, Rasya ma'am, please tell me.
Just a question. Should we also go and look at who are these employees, what level they are at, for how long they've been around, and whether they're happy in their job or not, or something was not done for them, in like how you said, in terms of their promotion or their growth, career path, etc. If that's not happened, they're demotivated or what?
Okay, wonderful. So there are different dimensions, as you all said. There are some related to technical details related to the product and product quality, research, or the service design and all that. There are some issues related to HR, core HR. See, as you all know, if there are core HR problems, training is not going to fix those problems. If the employees are demotivated because of some bad HR policies or practices in the organization, whatever the money that you spend on training and development will not fix those problems. I think we all have to understand, right? And then you also have to look at, maybe someone has to make the analysis of either pest analysis or the Porter's 5 forces model, whatever the models that you want to do, and understand how the competition is, where do you stand vis-a-vis the competition, all that is fine. But from the training and development perspective, we are going to look at what kind of training solutions can be offered to the organization to deal with the current situation. That is the perspective that we are going to discuss. Yes, Jagannath.
Sir, what I wanted to ask is whatever the employees are being trained in, the subjects, the curriculum, the contents, the HR should be aware of that, number one. Second is the, what we can say, the correlation or whatever is being taught or whatever is being trained to the people, that should be implemented by HR also. Say, for example, typically we cover our employees, all employees once a year through ODHRD kind of training. And then we teach them something or we discuss with them something, and when they return to the workplace, they find it altogether different, the work culture, or maybe like as you mentioned, HR policy and so on. So what I want to mention is there should be the consensus, both should be on the same page, the trainers as well as the HR. Thank you.
Okay, and now let me tell you, quite often in the organizations, what happens is, if performance is not up to the expectations of the organization, the first thought that goes into the minds of the people, both the line managers as well as the HR managers, now let us train our employees. Often, training may not be the problem. As one of you have said, it may be related to some bad HR practices or bad HR policies, right? So that is the reason why it is very, very important to do the training needs analysis. In the training needs analysis, if you identify that it is because of the HR related problems and not because of the training related gaps, then you need to deal with the HR policies as such and not just pour in money into the training and development department. So that is, in any case, it's a first requirement. But in this case, it is very clearly stated that they wanted to increase the market share. In fact, instead of increasing the market share, it is dipping. They wanted to see whether how the customer satisfaction is. They are finding that the customer satisfaction levels are also not improving. And they wanted to study the brand recall. Obviously, brand recall, if your product is doing pretty well, will points of time, and they found that even that is not satisfactory for them. Obviously, there is something that has to be done, and hence the CEO of the organization discussed the custodian of the training and development activity also. But in some organizations, some L&D departments are working independently, and HR department has no role to play in that. In those cases, obviously, there has to be a lot of interlinkages, a lot of coordination between these two departments. You cannot operate the L&D department without the involvement of the HR department, in whichever the way it is structured. And L&D department also has to be very well connected to all the line functions of the organization. Now, as far as this case is concerned, what we have seen that there are three major challenges as a CEO for you. One is you need to make sure that your market share improves. Now, by the way, what do you understand by market share? Let me ask you a technical question, of course.
In the same category of product, how much percentage of the market is owned by this company? How much client from the market is purchasing this company's product? That's the market share.
Very good. Very good. And that is an indication that how well you are dealing with in the market vis-a-vis your competition. Then the customer satisfaction index, actually, one of the reasons why customer satisfaction index falls is because of the lack of employee support in terms of either competence or in terms of their employee motivation. If your employees are competent and if your employees are motivated, it is unlikely that they will not take care of the customer satisfaction. So therefore, lack of customer satisfaction is an indication that you need to do some fixing of the problem internally with your employees. And the third one, of course, is the brand recall is in a way connected to the second challenge. And therefore, the CEO has approached the HR department, and HR department in turn has handed over this responsibility to a manager to fix the problem. And therefore, the L&D department started looking at what kind of competency approach we can take, and what are the, the point I mentioned earlier, customer satisfaction levels basically depend on what kind of commitments and motivations the employees have with their job roles. So if your job role has high level of commitment and you have concern for your organization, it is likely that you will spend more time with your customers and make sure that the product actually takes off. Rightly so, the L&D manager here, the concern manager here, wanted to see what kind of techniques can he use to improve the situation, and he zeroed down on AD and technical competency framework to improve the quality of the employees' performance, so that in their job roles, they succeed, their success cumulatively is the success of the organization. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, we all know what is AD model. AD basically stands for analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. All of us know. And technical competencies are the competencies that we talked about earlier. You have different kinds of classifications, but technical competencies are at the operational level, not at a leadership level. And the leadership level competencies we will see later on. Now, what is the first step at the analysis level that you do? Job analysis is the first step that is required for any technical competency framework to be implemented. Now, it also means that as a L&D manager who is trying to improve the situation here, first you must have a very rigorous and thorough job analysis done. And what is the problem you are dealing with? You are dealing with the falling market share. And in this case, you are primarily dealing with all the front-end operators of the market who are related to either, since it's a financial services company, obviously, they have not mentioned, but obviously it is some non-banking or banking financial services company where they are talking about loans, credit receivables, and any customer related support that it requires. And therefore, they have in the study material, they have identified 3 different job roles, and they have given the job analysis for those 3 different roles. Now, in the examination, when you look at your own assessment, this is what is expected to be done by you. They will give you the briefing of 1 paragraph that I talked about in the first slide. This is what probably, this will be converted into a paragraph, and they will probably narrate a couple of challenges that the organization is facing. And then the rest all what we are developing, these 5 steps need to be written by you, which have to be your own, ability to create something which out of the given situation. So in this case, the roles that they have defined are the sales role, credit role, and the collections role. Now, these 3 are very, very important in a financial services company. Obviously, you have to identify the right client, study the client's requirements, then you generate a proposal for the client, and then you will finally move on to the proposal will go to the credit department, do the appraisal, and then once the appraisal is done, the credit is disbursed. At a later date, your collections start. But these are the 3 roles which are very, very important, and let us understand how the job analysis has been done and what are the components of that. Are you able to see this? Can you read it, or is there any difficulty in reading them?
No, it's legible, sir.
It's legible. Okay. Now look at the sales manager. I mean, this is what you are expected to write. Now, how do you write this? Unless you have certain, understanding of what a job description is and what kind of components or the analysis goes into the jobs, you will not be able to write. Now, in this case, it is financial services company. Tomorrow, your question paper may include an IT services company. It can include a health services company or a hospital. It can include any manufacturing company, a laptop manufacturing, or let us say TV manufacturing, whatever it is. So you should be able to imagine and write relevant kind of job description for those kinds of roles, which matter for performance and success in the particular role. So here, can you please read this? I don't want to read it and make it boring for you. What you can do is first read the sales manager and then read the credit manager for yourself. If you have any issues related to that, discuss with me right now, so that in the process you develop the skill of writing the job descriptions, even if you do not know or have not worked in that role previously. Yeah. So I'll keep it on, and then you can ask me any related questions so that I will be able to answer you. This is what a case study is really, as far as this subject is concerned. Yeah, please raise questions. That is the best way to deal with a case. And understand that each of the statements that are made there should lead to the success of the person in that role.
So in sales manager, the 8th point says collections from overdue customers. Why would that be in the sales manager if there is a collection manager also?
Okay. Now, typically what happens, you know the customer better than the collections manager,
Right.
right? Now,
Yes.
since you are the person who bring the customer first, in case of any requirement, you should be able to interface. You cannot say that I don't have to deal with this customer. It is your botheration, because the customer enters the company through the window of the sales and not directly from the collections manager. And the relationship with the customer is ultimately in your requirement. See, a customer is, if you want a customer to be repeated customer for you, repeat customers come because the sales people maintain that relationship. Yes, Mayuri ma'am.
So I may be overthinking, but just one question here. So as a sales manager, I mean, the person will have people reporting into him, right? Him or her. So here there is absolutely no job description that talks about team management, or there's no point about team management, sir. So he's supposed to manage the team, but there is nothing that talks about team management or coaching, guiding his team.
Okay, good point. I think keep it on hold as we move forward in the next 2 slides. We will
Okay.
address this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, nice point, and thank you for raising that. Yeah. Okay, then move on to the credit manager. Oh, nice, interesting perspectives you are raising, and it is useful to discuss them. Yeah, look at the credit manager and see if there are anything that come in for discussion. No questions?
No, sir, this seems to be adequate. In fact, it covers most of the things, including the financial, everything, checking of customer.
All right, then I'll move on to the next collections manager.
Sir, in this one, if we are saying that the sales manager is the first line of defense in terms of collections also because of the relation, then in the collection manager's KRA, there should also be a mention of liaising with the sales manager on, collections in case of there is a first-hand intervention required from the sales manager.
Okay, very interesting point. Okay. Now, let me tell you, there are certain things which may not be mentioned here because they are prerequisites. In any case, that is needed. No, the coordination between the collection manager has to work in tandem with the sales, because you cannot really spoil the sales, the relationship with the customer, because you want to collect and you want to prove that you have been able to collect, does not mean it is at the cost of spoiling the customer relationship. So there are certain times you have certain things which are given, may not be mentioned here, but then it also means it is implied.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Mayuri ma'am, you have something.
So just one point, maybe it is coming up in the next slides, or maybe it is somewhere here. But a very important part of the collection manager's or collection head's job is also to ensure that he has this link up with the finance team to look at the overall budget of the organization, to see where they're losing money, which, I mean, whilst it's mentioned in terms of administrative work, but I think overall, link up with the finance team is also important for him to see where the company is going and what needs to be done to ensure the recoveries are in place, or maybe if they want to kind of the delinquent accounts, if they like, there are policies which say that after some number of days, then you have to do something reporting or whatever. So maybe that part. Yeah.
You have identified it right. Collections are very, very important. And the progress in collection actually determines what kind of finances you have and what kind of working capital requirements you have. And therefore, here it is more of MIS reporting, and the MIS obviously goes to various important stakeholders, including the sales manager. And then they have to periodically review this, and they have to have some way of reducing the delinquent accounts, right? So it is not stated in so many words, but then the MIS reports and reviewing the collections takes care of all that you mentioned. It is a process requirement. Here it is, as we mentioned about the technical competency framework. This is a process requirement. The competence required for a collection manager is his ability to generate MIS reports in a meaningful way, and then be able to share it with the rest of the team members who are the key stakeholders, and then the ability to understand the feedback given by them and use it for his improving his role performance, right? So not everything need to be written in so many details, but then it means all this. Okay.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So you have raised some very important questions. The beauty of the subject comes here only, and the complexity of the subject also here. Technical, the competency frameworks are not easy. Competency frameworks are not understood by everybody in the same way, and therefore it is fascinating to work on them, and it also sometimes frustrating to work on them, because sometimes they may not give you the results, and hence no wonder after the development of competency frameworks, not many corporates have still not used them, because it requires an amount of the expertise to implement them in the corporates. Now let us look at the design part. Now, the first part what you have done is basically you have looked at the job analysis, and you have looked at what are the various job related tasks that somebody has to perform to be able to be successful in that particular role. So for a sales executive, I think in the beginning of the session we talked about it. It is not just the competence of sale. What he requires is he should be technically sound in terms of the sales related knowledge. All the sales related concepts that are taught to somebody in any marketing course, he or she should be thoroughly aware of that. In addition to that, what are the skills required for a salesperson? Salesperson obviously he has to be a good negotiator. He should have high levels of persuasive skills. He should be excellent in networking with the customers, and he should have gift of the gab. He should be very good at communication, and he should be able to maintain and sustain the relationships, right? Those are all the skills required. And then what are the process abilities that are required for him or her? Responsible for implementing sales and marketing activities within a branch. This is specific to this case. It is not generic. In a branch, in order to grow the liabilities business and achieve the sales targets. That means you should be able to give more and more loans, but then within the regulations, regulatory framework, and within the guidelines of the organization. Ensure liability acquisition targets are met by developing new relationships, because loans, the beauty about loan business is the customer can be a repeat customer, but then he won't be a repeat customer every month or every week. There is a certain time gap between when I avail a loan for housing or a car, I take certain amount. There is a cycle time before which I can go for a next loan or a next purchase. And therefore, you should be able to develop new clients or new relationships so that you are able to grow your market. Responsible for acquiring new customers through multiple channels. I think this is very, very important. These days, the channels are more of social media kind of a thing. You should have more, you should first of all be aware of the channels, and then effectiveness of channels, and then be able to make use of the channels for improving his sales, and perform all sales related activities for existing and potential customers, which means you should know how to answer all the technical questions related to the product or the service, documentation required, frequently asked questions about the documentation or the product or the service, and then how do you deal with any exception handling. All those things you should be able to answer. Now, this is where I think the question that you asked earlier, I think who asked this question? Mayuri ma'am asked. Different people require, even within the same sales, you can look at it from 4 different levels. Technical competency framework looks at looking at from different levels. So here you can define beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. Now, at the beginner level, you require certain competencies. At the intermediate level, you require certain competencies. At the advanced and expert level, you require altogether different competencies. Now, maybe at an advanced and an expert level, you require more of team management, team creation, team handling, team dynamics, resolving team conflicts and all. Maybe at the beginner level, you don't have so much of team related work because it's more of an individual role performance. So that may be the reason why at the beginner level, you may not have so much discussion about the team. So some of these things, I mean, it is not that whatever is written in the textbook or in the PPT here, it is a gospel truth. Sometimes it may be possible. Some of these competencies may have been not included here. The author must have assumed that these are the basic requirements for the role, therefore they have not included. Or sometimes it is possible that the author must have just ignored or forgotten to mention that. Therefore, the technical competency framework, the beauty of about technical competency framework is that it is flexible for either the employee or for the manager to be to include what you think is necessary for that particular role to be more successful. So if you want to include a particular competence related to team effectiveness, you can include maybe at the advanced and expert level, need not necessarily be included perhaps in the beginner and the intermediate level. I think that is the beauty of that. Now, these 4 levels, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, expert, you can change the nomenclature. It is not necessary that you should always use only these words. You can even use your own terminology. But what is important is that there are different levels for a particular job, and for that particular job, you have to have different levels of competencies required. And let us now see what are the competencies required. Functional competencies or technical competencies are the same. So now let us see for credit policy and underwriting, what are the competencies required at the 4 levels. Now again, I'll keep it here on for you to read. Now you can raise the questions you have, if you have any. As you can see, you put a serial number there, which is defined as functional competency 1.1, functional competency 1.2, like that. You are codifying that. Then at the beginner level, at the intermediate level, at the advanced level, and at the expert level, what are those competencies that are expected for that particular job role, and whether it is a knowledge related competence or skill related competences or related to process ability, that is also defined. So these definitions will help you in understanding and mapping the individual to these competencies and help you to achieve the gaps in individual versus the organization's expectations. So please go through them and raise any questions that you think are to be answered. Are they making sense, those statements? Are you happy with the way the statements are made there about the competencies?
Yes, sir.
Right? So there for writing the competencies, two, three things you must be very clear of. One, it has its own vocabulary. Right? You must use those words, understanding, able, skilled, these kinds of words which are used there. They are all action verbs. They're all related to action. Number two, it should be specific to that job role. And if you have that competence, it is fairly likely that you will be successful. By that, we also mean if you lack that competence, your success will be limited. And the competencies can be imparted through training and development. And it is the responsibility of the L&D department to identify the gaps among the cluster of people that you are looking at. And for a given cluster, you can impart them the training programs so that their gap can be either reduced or completely deleted or remove the gap so that their job roles can be more effective. They become more productive. More productive means higher effectiveness. Higher effectiveness means organizational success. The individual success leading to organizational success. Any questions?
No, sir. This is clear.
Two, three things you must remember from here is when you're doing this competency framework, give it a unique number for each competency so that it remains in your repository. And when you are assessing the people and you are arriving at what are the gaps analysis, you know under which competence, how many people have the gap, and that will help you in planning your L&D related activities. Now, these are all related to the advanced and expert level competencies. So able to design new policies and processes, able to advise senior management on the changes required. So these are higher level competencies which are not required at the other two levels. Then finally, of course, the expert level, you are able to take decision on credit policies and underwriting mechanisms based on the risk and business strategy of the organization. Now, underline that. Please understand, competencies are not going to be generic. Even if you take, let us say, you cannot create competencies across the cement industry or steel industry or banking industry. They are specific to an organization. Maybe while some of the competencies may appear generic, but each organization has its own unique way of seeing what a job role effectiveness is and what is the successful employee is. And therefore, you need to apply yourself to the given context and prepare the competencies for that organization. And you cannot publish, okay, these are the competencies required for a particular industry and everybody will follow them. No, it doesn't happen. Okay.
So just one question for advanced competencies. So the assumption is also that besides the 1.9 and 1.10, everything in beginner and intermediate is also applicable to advanced, right? And similarly for expert, everything in beginner, medium, intermediate and advanced is applicable to expert.
It is assumed there that you have already crossed those stages and therefore you possess those competencies. Otherwise, you will not be able to appraise, you know.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Now, these are for customer acquisition and relationship management. Again, you know, you can just go through quickly and then raise any questions.
Sir, one question, if I may ask.
Yes.
So, sir, typically, even in the sales manager and the sales executive profiles that you shared, and even here, customer acquisition relationship management, I think the last couple of years is a lot of focus on ethical selling, which is more of a behavioral competency. But in the book, I don't find mention of that at all. I mean, I think that today becomes a very prime important thing, and you could lose your job or whatever, or the organization's reputation if the selling is not ethical.
Absolutely, you can include. I mean, that's what I said.
Can be included, right? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Behavioral, I mean, these days everybody is talking about issues related to ethics and sustainability and all that. So you can include.
Correct. Yeah.
See, the limitation here is only your ability to imagine and then the ability to implement. You know, typically, most organizations want you to be ethical. But in sales, you know, if you are a very ethical person, I don't know how many of us actually can make sales. You understand what I mean, right? In India and elsewhere, what is generally reported is the government corruption. What doesn't come out in the public is the corporate corruption.
But sir, today I think there are a lot of customers who are taking this onus of reporting any mis-selling that is happening to them. And there are multiple such cases where then the organizations, they don't want that to come in news. So they, I think, end up compensating the customer with X amount of money for the loss recovery. And I think that's the reason we don't see too many cases coming up in public.
No, they're not reported. I have been in the corporate for long enough. I think almost 4 decades I have already spent. And I've seen government sector, I've seen private sector, I've seen cooperative sector, all the 3 sectors I have seen. And internally, a bit of what happens, I have a feel of it. I have been witness to certain things. So they don't come out in the public. But then
they don't, sir, because if, let's say, if you're talking about mis-selling a mutual fund or a wealth management portfolio to a customer, typically when the customer goes screaming to the banks, and I have witnessed a few of these cases where the banks have actually paid the customers for them to keep quiet or accepted that, yes, we were wrong in the way it was sold, or we did not do your due diligence. And the customers take the money happily and go away. So there is no reporting that happens.
Correct. I agree with you. So, but your point is well taken. You can always mention about the ethical behavior part as an important competence for most of these kinds of jobs.
So because nowadays, if you look at the way the KPIs are set and the way ratings are done at the end of the year, it is more to do with performance as well as behavioral parameters.
Yes.
So it is a equal weightage to both of these parameters. And if it is not mentioned, and logically, if you today look at I mean, you're very right in saying that organizations don't follow the competency model, because not a single job description that comes out in open talks about the competencies required for a job. It just says job responsibilities. And it's thin line, and people have to try and, which obviously the people who are getting recruited don't think of it that way. I think competency has to be mentioned, but not much knowledge. Again, what you're saying is very true. People don't have the knowledge, and hence they don't include the competency frameworks in their job descriptions.
Now, our problem in India, particularly in our organizations, is we have very loose approach to the jobs. You know, I know organizations where somebody is recruited as let us say, an accounting assistant, and on a certain day the receptionist is on leave. The account assistant is also asked to go on to the doubling as the receptionist. Right? I mean, other countries it doesn't happen. You are recruited for a certain set of competencies, and your competencies have to be used for that job. job role. If I am an accounts assistant, I cannot go and develop as a receptionist in an organization because those are not my competencies, right? But then here everything is allowed. You know, you can be an accounts officer today and tomorrow you are a stores in charge, but the competencies are different for that. Yeah, okay. Right, I think we'll move on. Customer acquisition and relationship man. Please go through them. Please don't take it light, because this is what you are required to do in your, if you are planning to take some role in the competency mapping, or at least for your examinations. Proficiency in writing these statements is very important, and identifying the right kind of competency and then using the right kind of vocabulary for that. And the ability to distinguish between, these 4 levels is equally important. All of them cannot look like the same, and therefore you must be able to differentiate what is required at each level in articulating your answers in the exam. Okay, move on. Then sales strategy and planning and implementation. So for different roles, they have given different competency framework here. And for each one of them, you must be able to differentiate whether it is related to knowledge, skill, or process abilities. Right? Any questions?
Still reading, sir.
Okay, okay. No issues. Yeah, at this stage, I want to ask you 2 questions. These discussions, do they make you feel that competency frameworks are more effective from the employee productivity and the success point of view? Does it make you feel that, yes, if I have this, probably I can make my employees more successful? That is number 1. Number 2, if you want to do this kind of an approach, what problems do you foresee in your own experience? Can any one of you respond to this? Yeah, Mayuri ma'am.
So to answer your first question, yes, I think if the competencies are laid down in a fashion that the way you have explained here, it is going to make the life of the employer as well as the life of the employee easy, because the expectations are clearly quoted. You are expected to go through these, and if these are followed, then there might not be a need of an IDP or any other thing, improvement or development plans, because employees are clear where they stand and what they are expected. So this will also help probably at the end of the year to ensure that employees have done what they were supposed to do, and at the beginning of the year they were clear what is expected. I think that helps. And sir, when you talk about question 2, which is what are some of the problems that people face, I think first is lack of understanding amongst the employees, employer, as well as HR in terms of how to write the competency. That's the biggest, I think, bottleneck. People don't understand. They get confused. And as you said, the terminology that needs to be used in terms of writing competencies, that is clearly lacking. So even if you refer to institutes like Aon, which is supposed to be an expert in competency development, and they actually guide a lot of corporates on how to do it. even they seems to be fumbling when it comes to crystallizing what a competency for a role is. And the third important part, as I mentioned, is that whenever a job vacancy is rolled out, it has got nothing to do with competency. It has more to do with ABCD is what you need to do, and that's what you need to. But how to do it and how to track it and what is the right lingo to use is missing.
Okay, great. So I think as experts from coming out of the ISTT program, I think all of you should make your own contribution to change that scenario. I know those are the common problems. A typical MBA graduate who has done some HR specialization will not know so many of these details because not every MBA graduate studies competency mapping as a course, and therefore they will not know much. But as ISTD diploma holders, all of you are going through this, I think you are better placed in dealing with some of these matters. I think you should make a difference to your regular, to your respective organizations. All right. So if there are no questions here, I'll move on. One point I want to bring it to your attention. I think what Mayuri ma'am has said is very right. But then as an internal resource of an organization, addressing all these issues is going to be very tricky. One, you will have some internal baggage to carry. And then sometimes it may be even difficult to deal with some of the internal colleagues. So therefore, these kinds of things are better done by an external expert or an external consultant, because they'll have less biases, they'll have less baggage, and they'll be much more objective, because they don't have to bother about day-to-day employee relationship among the colleagues. So it is always safer to get these things done by a third party who is an expert in competency map. Yeah. You would have seen here in some of those competencies, they are related to multiple parts of the technical competencies. For example, devices promotional campaigns for different regions. It has knowledge component as well as skill component. So it is possible that a particular competence requires different dimensions of the technical competency framework. It is not always necessary that a competence has only one dimension of the competency framework. You can have interface of multiple competencies required for that particular activity or competence. Right? I think we'll move on because we are already 9:45, another 15 minutes is there. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, I think when Mayuri ma'am raised about the team building related competency, you mentioned that competency framework is flexible. It is not written in stone, and therefore the role performer or the manager, whoever wants to include some additional competencies in that, it can be included. But you have to also make sure that that particular competency that you want to add makes a difference for the job role performance. For example, you want to include advanced Excel training as a job role competence. In a certain level, that may be possible. But at a higher level, maybe at an advanced level or for a different job role, it may not be required because that basic requirement itself is advanced Excel. And hence, some of those things may not be while writing the competencies for a particular role, you must be thoroughly aware of what that role is and what is expected as a prior knowledge or the prior competence that it requires. Otherwise, it becomes too long a list. You have got too long a list, it becomes very difficult to administer. So go for only those which make a difference for that particular role and make it explicit, and what is an assumed or basic requirement that need not be mentioned here in the competency framework. That flexibility is always there. You have to use it judiciously and use your discretion. Now, how do you implement? The question is, where all can you implement? The competency framework can be implemented right from the entry point, that is the recruitment. If you've got good competency definitions and the level of expectation from the organization, you can map the individual at the time of recruitment itself and see how best the individual fits into the organization. There is an individual competency profile. There's no organization expectation. If you are able to match these two and there's a proper fit, you can definitely go for that particular candidate. Alternatively, if there is a major fit and there are still some gaps, during your initial training period, if you want to overcome those competency gaps, then also you can go for a particular candidate. It can also be used for during the appraisal processes. In fact, quite often the appraisal data becomes the basis for identifying the gaps between the individual and the organization's expectations, because the appraisal data captures all the performance related information of an individual. Using that, identify what competencies the individual lacks, and that can be used as a template for creating training programs within the organization. And if you are looking at succession planning, right? What is succession planning? You are having certain roles in the organization at different levels, and you are trying to find out who are the people who are ready to occupy a higher position with a different role. Now, since each role requires different competencies, you can also identify who are the people who have got the competencies for taking on the higher roles, so that you are able to prepare your organization for a proper succession. And if required certain amount of training programs before the person is moved up the ladder, you can also create the related training programs based on that. And it becomes a backbone. Technical competency framework are basically competency frameworks per se, because when we deal with the leadership, we talk about the executive positions. The competency frameworks also give the backbone. They are the backbone for the L&D department to come out with creative training programs for enabling the organization to stay competitive in the marketplace. For example, today the whole world is moving towards AI and the related technical developments. Now, for most of the organizations, these skills are not there as of now, whether it is department A, B, C, D, and particularly these are all like, the application. You don't have to be an expert in AI related technology, but you should be able to use it, right? Now, how do you create your organization for future ready? That requires a lot of training. Now, what kind of a training is required? You have to identify what are the competencies required for your employees for remaining competitive in the next 10 years, 15 years, whatever the time frame that you're looking at. How do you identify them? You need to understand what are your strategic plans for the next 10 years. What makes you successful in those, say, let us say 10 years from now? What are your employee competencies now? What kind of competencies have to be developed? All those things you can work out if you have a good understanding of the competency frameworks. Now, then you having done the competencies, you have first done the job analysis, identified the various competencies, the job roles. Then you identify what are the technical competencies required, given them a code, identified the levels, given them what are required, and then you have implemented it. Implemented means you have been able to successfully launch it among various stakeholders for whom this really matters, and then having worked using the competencies for certain time, you must see whether you have been effective in that, whether some competencies have been left out, whether some competencies are redundant. You need to make an assessment of that. For that, you can use the Kirkpatrick's 4-level evaluation and then see how effective are your competency frameworks that have been created for the organization. Typically, if you use a 2-year period and make an assessment, you are likely to be more accurate in your assessment rather than a short period of 6 months or lesser than a year. So it is a continuous effort. It is an ongoing effort in the organization. The competency frameworks have to be rolled out periodically after making an assessment and re-evaluating them. And then over a period of time, I'm sure this will certainly make an organization more successful. Now, I spoke about the individual development plan because individual development plans are very important. The basic foundation of competency mapping is you want to make an individual successful in a particular job role, which means unless your focus, the unit of planning is individual and increase the competency levels of that individual, your overall system will not improve. And therefore, you must also have an individual development plan. Individual development plan cannot be made unless the competences required for a particular person in his job role are clearly defined. Therefore, in most organizations, it's very difficult for the individuals there to prepare their own development plans. I can tell you, I don't want to name the organization, but then this organization has a fantastic way of creating the individual development plans, not only making the plans, but then they implement it, they review it every quarter, and at the end of the year, they will see how much progress has been made by the individual in his job role and how far the individual job plan that has been prepared in consultation with the manager concerned has been implemented. It requires time investment, it requires budgets, it requires the identification of the right platforms for getting trained and all that. So those investments are made by the organization, and I have seen this being very, very effective. And no wonder this company is one of the best managed companies in the country, and they continue to be like that because they have this kind of approach in terms of not only having a competency framework in their organization, but also making sure individuals meet those competencies which are expected by the organization. So the goals are set by the individuals, the expectations are discussed by the manager, both of them come to a consensus, and then they're all documented. The individual says, these are my strengths. The boss confirms it. Individual says, these are my areas of improvement. They don't call it as weakness. These are areas where I want to improve. Then you write your own training programs, preferably, and the boss or the manager says, okay, I accept this. Then it goes to the HR department. HR department actually takes care of, the L&D department takes care of the entire implementation of the individual development plan. And if you do it for a period of time, you will certainly have excellent employees who are very effective and successful in their job roles, leading to organizations' overall success. Now, what goes into the individual development plan? Basically, as you can see here, you identify your professional goals and the aspirations that you have. You want to see in your long term, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, where do you want to see yourself? Then determine what your strengths and development needs are. And then you talk to your boss about what kind of plan can you make to actually move in the direction and then meet those requirements with whatever is the required in terms of the boss's support, organization support, and then finally you achieve your professional goals. Yes, madam.
So just a question. So in my organization, the individual development plan is so the employee is in the driver's seat, and the expectation is that the employee will decide what they want to learn.
Yes.
Is that the right approach? Because as per what you're saying, it looks like there has to be a framework, but here there is no framework.
No,
as to what are.
That is what I used to do, or we used to do in a certain organization. Every year we have this appraisal meeting which runs into several hours, and it requires an amount of investment prior to that meeting. And then we look at what our performance was in the previous year, what is expected for the next year. The organization defines, what kind of a growth you require, what kind of markets they are looking at, and all that. And then you talk about what your strengths are, where you can do very well, rate yourself, and then where are the areas, if I want to improve to that level of performance and become ready for the next level, what are the areas where I want to improve, whether it is leadership, technical knowledge, whatever. And then your boss and you sit together for hours, maybe at least an hour or more than that, and discuss each component. Then the boss agrees to certain things. Boss may say, improve certain things. Boss may say, no, I don't agree, you remove this. Finally, you write your own development plan. I want to do this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this year. This is apart from your regular job role, which means apart from your role performance, you are trying to create a space for your own development that may be requiring about 15 to 20% of investment of time, both from the organization and the individual. And then these documents are all shared with the HR department. HR department will put all these needs together and see who should be sent for what kind of a training, where is it organized internally, externally, what is the cost, prepare the budgets, all that is implemented so that you also feel that you are growing in the organization. That growth in the organization is the most satisfying experience for an employee. Now, you may do very well in your role, you may get your promotion or the incentive or the salary and all, but the sense of growth is what actually keeps an employee motivated, and that is ensured through the individual development plan. And the individual development plan is basically written by you, moderated by your supervisor, and finally agreed upon for implementation by the concerned HR or the L&D department.
But for that, as an employee, I need to know which are the courses or which is the direction that I need to take to develop. And what if my line manager also is not aware of what is the course which is right for me to develop? And I'm also not aware. It happens in my organization, which is why I'm bringing it up, and it's a big question because I see this as a big failure in where I'm working right now.
Okay. I think it is something that evolves over a period of time. I don't know in which kind of industry you're working in, but I have worked in the industry that I've worked in is basically I was an international trader, so I know what was required at that point in time, and then we used to go through those courses, both in national and international training programs. The organization used to sponsor.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayuri, ma'am?
So my observation on the IDPs typically is that organizations, they put in an IDP in place, and the result of the IDP is the exit of the employee. I mean, typically when they want to exit an employee, they try and put an IDP in place. The success ratio of IDPs is very, very limited because the intent is not really to help the employee to perform and move up the ladder and, do good things. The intent typically is if the employee is a difficult employee, not managing sales, not being able to get along with his manager, IDP is put in place, and after 3 months, the employee is exited of the organization, which is an unfair practice, actually.
I agree with you. I think in some organizations, particularly, it is not, I don't call it as an organizational bad practice, it is some individual bad practice.
Correct, sir. Yes.
The process uses as a tool or a weapon to target some individuals, but then good organizations don't do it. And that is the reason why successful organizations continue to thrive for decades and centuries. And if your organization or any organization wants to, if you want to make your organization a 100-year-old organization, good practice are to be followed. And bad managers are the reason for that. The kind of perception that you have given is because of the bad managers, not because of bad organizations.
Correct. So organization is not bad. It's a 150-year-old world thriving organization. Everything is good. It's just that some people end up doing this practice because they don't want to spend time with their people. Maybe managers need to develop that.
Correct. I agree with you. I have seen this. I have noticed this in the organizations where I work. It is used more as a tool to target an individual and then softly tell him that your time is up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, correct. I agree with you. I have no difference of opinion, but then that is, some individuals are like that, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, I think we have already crossed 10 o'clock. You will have probably your next class. So I'm already, I think I've explained everything that is required to be done. So these things are something that you can read. So at every point, you have to look at the individual's goals, motivations, talents, strengths, and development opportunities for And every organization can have its own IDP tool where you can periodically review it. So that completes this space discussion. I hope it is pretty useful for all of you and you have learned something which you can use in your respective organization, also prepare for your exam. And we'll meet next week and then we'll talk about the leadership competency framework. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great week ahead and we'll meet next Sunday. So I'll stop sharing and close the call. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.